It's the damn truth. New York's truth. The truth behind the BS. For New York, nothing at all in between. This is Bernard McGurk.
So, Bernie.
This is Sid Rosenberg.
The one and only Sid.
Live, local, on it.
You never know what's going to happen.
Exclusively.
What is this?
77 WABC. Woo!
11:07 on your New York Tuesday morning, day 2 of Rosh Hashanah. Once again, Bernard and I wishing all of you a happy New Year, all of our Jewish friends. And
Lashana Tova, yo.
Very good. You know what that means?
Hell no.
Perfect. What about Chag Sameach? You know what that means?
It means that you're a schmuck. No, I know what L'chaim means.
What does that mean?
To life.
Very good.
L'chaim, to life.
You already know more than most Jews know, just so you know. But
they watched Fiddler on the Roof, boned up.
So happy New Year to everybody. And we start off hour number 2 after discussing a lot of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and the big showdown at Longwood University in Virginia tonight, Kane and Pence, with a very esteemed guest.
Yes,
no?
Yes, we do. Right here on the phone with us right now from WABC Radio himself on Saturdays and CNBC, and an author as well, Larry Kudlow. Good morning, Larry. I was going to call you Lawrence.
No, Larry. Good morning, Bernie. Thank you very much.
Not at all. Listen, the book is JFK and the Reagan Revolution, A Secret History of American Prosperity, again by Lawrence Kudlow and Brian Dimitrovich.
Yep.
If I'm not mispronouncing that.
Nope.
And it actually a book that is very apropos to the times we are living in right now, because you do, of course, it's JFK and the Reagan. They cut taxes, and I believe similarly our guy. And you are an advisor to Mr. Trump, are you not, Mr. Kudlow?
I am a informal advisor. I've done some work on his economic and tax program, along with my buddy Steve Moore and many others.
So I would imagine that you're advising him to propose similar things that JFK and Reagan did themselves.
Yes, absolutely right. It turns out it's really a similar situation, because the 1950s, unlike what a lot of urban legends suggest, were not a great time of prosperity. There were 3 recessions. It was a stagnant economy with a 91% top income tax rate. And JFK comes in and really almost out of nowhere decides to slash marginal tax rates across the board. This has almost been lost to history. The Democrats have read Kennedy's tax cut legacy right out of their history, as you can imagine. However, one of the key points here is that we all know Ronald Reagan slashed tax rates. I worked as one of Reagan's budget deputies years ago. But we forget that Kennedy was the pioneer. Kennedy was the first supply-sider. And I wanted to bring that back with Brian Dimitrovich, because it does apply today. And by the way, it doesn't always mean Republicans can be the only tax cutters. There was a time when Democrats were tax cutters, although this apparently is not the time.
Let me ask you about Trump, though, specifically, Larry. Sit here. I'm going to ask you to take your Make America Great hat off here for a second. And obviously, you know what you're talking about when it comes to taxes, and the book is great. Did Donald Trump lose a bit? If he goes out there and cuts taxes, but does he lose some of the faith of the folks out there because of his own tax issue going on right now? In other words, does the average American go, this guy, when it comes to taxes, no matter what he says, I can't trust him. He doesn't pay it himself.
No, I don't think so. I think that's the New York Times rap, and I know a lot of the papers are picking that up, and of course Hillary's picking that up. But no, I don't think so. I mean, look, Trump played by the law. That's point number one. He did not evade taxes. In other words, he did nothing wrong. And what I want to add to that is some of this was not even Trump's fault, because, and here's what nobody is reporting, I don't know why, maybe I'm going to have to write a column about it. The tax bill of 1986, pretty good bill, dropped income tax rates from 50 to 28, et cetera, et cetera. However, in that bipartisan tax bill, passive real estate investors got killed. And for the first time, they got killed because they weren't allowed to take any depreciation write-offs which meant the value of their investment went down because they wanted tax losses to offset income. All of that was done away with in the 86 bill, and it was never grandfathered. It's the first time in history a big tax change wasn't grandfathered. So, make a long story short, we had a real estate debacle, and it started in about 87, 8, 9, 90, 91, 92. In fact, some housing prices didn't come back until the later 90s. William Seidman, then the FDIC chairman, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, good man, Bill Seidman, the late Bill Seidman, he started something called the RTC. You remember this? The Resolution Trust Corporation, because thousands upon thousands projects went bankrupt, and savings and loans went down with them, and so did banks. Now, how does this apply to Trump? He was caught in that maelstrom, particularly his casinos. But investors walked away from some of his other projects, and the whole economy in real estate was tanking. So all I'm saying is, I'm not there. I'm not a historian about Donald Trump's projects. But a little bit of general history, it was a brutal period for anybody in the real estate business. And insofar as taking the losses, the net loss, carry back, carry forward, everybody did it. It was, law. He wasn't doing anything wrong. In fact, this is a New York Times story, April 1995, where the reporter praises Trump for being the comeback king. In other words, he was able to get out from under the real estate crash and got himself back going again.
He did, and essentially, Larry, that's what he says he'll do for this country here.
Right.
And by the way, nobody pays more taxes than the feds require. Not the New York Times, not Hillary Clinton, nobody. And Trump's not advocating higher taxes. He's advocating lower taxes. So there's no real hypocrisy here. Lower taxes except for the hedge fund weasels and certain other parasites.
Listen, this is a key part of the story, but Mr. Trump has to do much better in selling this. You're exactly right. He is advocating across-the-board tax reform, lower individual tax rates, lower capital gains tax rates. He's doing away with the death tax. And most importantly, he's lowering business tax rates from roughly 40% to 15%. And that includes small businesses. And I believe, as he said at the New York Economics Club, that will grow the economy at 4% for years. That will create higher wages and more jobs. So he has a prosperity plan. Now, here's what he really missed in the debate. Mrs. Clinton is raising taxes across the board. Everything. Individuals, corporations, capital gains, stock transfers, inheritance taxes. You cannot tax your way into prosperity. Never been done. JFK cut taxes and got prosperity. Ronald Reagan cut taxes and got prosperity. She is doing the opposite. It won't work. It's going to be an economic calamity. But Mr. Trump's got to sell that, Bernie. He's got to push it at every turn.
Well, let's stop you right there. Larry Kudlow joining us. Great show here on the weekends, WABC. I can make that argument for just about every single policy Donald Trump has, starting with his pathetic performance in that debate against Hillary last Monday, that he's done everything but sell any of his policies, that he spends way too much time worried about arguing about, some Miss Universe pageant lady or even this defending his taxes. I mean, you've seen what's happened here the last couple of weeks, Larry. Whether you love the guy or not, you have to admit it. This guy spends way too much time on banal, trite nonsense than selling what you're talking about, selling his policies.
Well, I do admit it. I absolutely agree with you. I think he's made some serious tactical mistakes. I think he missed a lot of opportunities in the first debate. When Hillary said, what'd she say, trumped up and
trickle down.
Yeah. He left that uncovered. It took me, look, I've been a debater. Really, what do I do for a living? Either on television or radio. I debate, all right? A polite form of arguing, I hope. Anyway, the key thought here, particularly in these publicized debates, it doesn't matter what the question is. What matters is how you answer.
But you said that. Well, let me tell you about the perception. Well, I agree. So when you say when he let that go, let me tell you what the perception is, which is dangerous for Donald Trump, Larry. The perception is he didn't let it go. he doesn't have an answer. The perception is that he really doesn't know the answer to some of these things to come back in eloquent form and attack Hillary Clinton. That may not be the truth, but that is the perception.
Well, on that one, I'm much more lenient toward him. I think he does know the material. Look, we worked hand in glove with him and his senior staff to develop this tax plan, and he was a part of every major decision. And if I do say myself, it's a pretty darn good tax cut plan, and it will promote growth. So I don't agree that he doesn't know it. However, he is a rookie in these debates, and he's not come across anybody as smart as Hillary Clinton. I happen to disagree with Mrs. Clinton, but she is a smart woman. She's been through this policy grinder,
slick.
and she's been through debates. And I think Trump has got to lift his game in the second debate. Must lift his game because, as you said, with regard to this Alicia Machado and all this other nonsense, he's losing ground. I agree with you. The numbers are very clear, and he's got to have a comeback in the second debate. Must have it.
Speaking with Larry Kudlow here on the Bernie and Sid Show, the author of the book, JFK and the Reagan Revolution, A Secret History of American Prosperity. Larry Kudlow, a radio host here on WABC and on CNBC. I would remind everybody, Larry, that Hillary was the one who took it to the gutter in the debate, brought up the beauty pageant nonsense.
Yes.
By the way, which all occurred the same year that Bill Clinton was sexually molesting an intern in the White House, and Donald Trump would be a fool not to defend himself against that. But going forward.
Well, I agree with you, Larry. Go ahead, finish your point.
I don't know.
Agreed.
Look, he took the bait.
He did,
and a lot of it.
And the media, but the media dutifully did her work for her. She gave them their cue, and they took it up and obsessed over it all week long.
Yeah, but of course you're right. And 3 a.m. tweets, on this stuff, not good.
No,
none of it's good. I'm not going to defend
no,
that.
Not good.
I think Sid's criticism is exactly right. But here's my point: a good debater learns how to get his or her message out, regardless of the question.
Sure.
So when that, what's his name, asks about birthers, or when Hillary talks about Miss Universe and some of her other slurs, that doesn't mean Mr. Trump has to stay with it for all he has to do is just brush it aside and say, look, we've dealt with all that. That's a long time ago. We're here to talk about America's future and how to get middle-income wage earners back on their feet. They haven't had a wage hike since the year 2000, et cetera, et cetera. You diss it. You push it aside. You give it the back of your hand. Once you get down into the mud, I agree with what you're saying. The trick is don't get down into the mud, because I want to tell you this, whether it's law and order and cops, whether it's his tax cut plan, whether it's defending our borders, whether it's appointing conservative judges, he beats her on the issues every time.
Yep.
And that's his strength. But any debater will tell you, you got to get that out. Not once, several times. Like the moderator says, well, Mr. Trump, next month's forecast is for 70-degree weather in the New York City area. Doesn't that mean there's global warming? And he says, well, perhaps, but what I'm most interested in is improving America's standard of living with my tax cuts.
Perfect.
You follow me? You've got to give it your own answer. You
totally
can't
agree.
be sucked up.
Totally agree. So with that said then, because he's come out and said, hey, maybe next time I'll be a little bit rougher. Maybe next time I won't care that Chelsea's sitting there. Maybe I'll talk about Bill Clinton's infidelities and blah, blah, blah. Again, sit here. I think that's the dumbest thing you can do. I mean, listen, if she attacks him, maybe you throw a little zinger once or twice. But I really believe he has to come strong with policy on Sunday night. So when he says, hey, maybe this time I'll be a bit more ruthless, you got to say to yourself, Larry, slow down, Donald, slow down, yes?
I agree. I'd like to get you in there for the debate briefing.
Well, I would also...
I agree. What can I say? He's a very talented man, my humble opinion. I've known him many years. I'm not an intimate, but I've interviewed him and so forth on TV and radio. I've known him. He's been good to me. His instincts are very good on policy, particularly the economy, but also other things. He got ahead of the pack on immigration. He got ahead of the pack on dealing with some of the trade inequities. He's got good message, but He's got to go to it. He's got to have the enthusiasm and vigor on the message, not the dirt. And if
True.
he does that, he'll be in much better shape. The guy knows what he's doing. My view, again, this is personal stuff. I think he has tremendous potential for leadership, and that's what this country needs. I really believe that. But he must prove it to the voters. He must prove to the voters and the viewers of these debates that he has what it takes, that he can get the job done. I happen to believe he can, but it's up to him to be persuasive. Reagan was persuasive. Kennedy, from our book, was persuasive. If Mr. Trump says, I'm going to cut your taxes, he has to have a follow-up or two, such as, my tax cut plan will put more money in your pocket. Her tax increase plan will take money out of your pocket. That's the kind of thing he has to fill in to be persuasive. And by the way, Kennedy was a fabulous debater, and Reagan knocked Jimmy Carter out of the ballpark in 1980. He had one bad debate in 1984, and he came back in the second debate and he ripped Walter Mondale to pieces. So, these debates have to be substantive. They've got to be.
True. But, I mean, she is running on being the first female candidate ever, the face of feminism. So if he can definitely, maybe briefly point out how she's a hypocrite because she slandered and bullied Bill's sex assault victims, all the better.
I wouldn't give it more than 9 words.
Okay, 9 words. I'll take 9 words.
Last one. With all that said, boy, I'm lockstep with you on this whole thing, Larry. Last one. The debate tonight in Virginia. I've heard this about 1,000 times this morning. You know where it's coming from, a very liberal media, biased, one-sided, just like Lester Holt was. Even I admit that. And that is that Mike Pence must come tonight with a mop and a bucket to clean up the mess that Donald Trump has created the last couple of weeks. A, is that accurate? And B, does it really matter?
Well, it matters. Absolutely. Look, I've known Mike Pence for an awful long time. He is one smart guy. He is a free market supply sider. He has great Christian values. He understands foreign policy. I mean, he was part of the House leadership in the Republican Party. My guess is Mike Pence is going to give Kaine a debating lesson, and Mike Pence is going to give Kaine a message, a lesson on policy issues and messaging. That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to blow him out of the water. I know Mike. He is tough. He is tough, but he's calm. But most of all, he's really knowledgeable. So I think everybody's going to learn something tonight from Governor Pence.
Larry Kudlow, the book is JFK and the Reagan Revolution, A Secret History of American Prosperity. Lawrence Kudlow.
Spectacular.
Listen to him Saturdays on WABC. What time is that, Larry?
It's 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
And also on CNBC. Thank you. Great job.
Excellent
we appreciate
job.
it. Good luck with the book.
Appreciate you.
Excellent job.
Thank you, Larry and Kudlow. Back on Bernie.